Everybody, welcome to Journey Kids Online. I am so excited about today. Before we get hopped in, I actually just kind of want to give you a preview of what we're talking about. It's all about choices. In fact, we're talking about somebody choosing a group of people to basically team up with, his team. And so as we dive into that, I actually want to play a game. So it's game time. Let's do it. All right, this game is simple. Mike the dog is gonna pop on the screen and you are going to follow the instructions. Whether or not he picks what he chooses, you're gonna follow what's on the screen. So if you're ready to play, let's get started. All right, so how many did you get? Did you get 3 out of 5, 2 out of 5, 1 out of 5? And listen, I'm not gonna lie to you, that dog has been picking some stuff for a while. He did a great job illustrating our point, but really, actually, it's a little bit more than that because it's not like necessarily we were walking around with options. In fact, our story today is about Jesus choosing the disciples. But before we hop into that, I actually do want you to stand to your feet and enjoy some worship together. We have some brand new videos coming soon, but today I want to relive one with our Maddie for the best is yet to come as we discuss those things moving forward. So let's worship together. All right, I see some of you guys worked pretty hard at worship, and thank you for that. When we show God's praise, no matter if we're in a group or if we're alone at home, He is honored and He is glorified. Just like we talked last week, what does it mean to glorify God? What does it mean to do what God wants us to do and not what we want us to do? When we push off our desires and we fill ourselves, remember my hand turning blue, we fill ourselves, it makes an effect. It changes things. Well, today's story is no different. In fact, it's right on the line. But before we hop into it, I actually want you to think about our big picture question. Why did Jesus come to earth? Why did Jesus come to earth? All right, let's watch the story and discover the bigger truth together.
Jesus' ministry had begun. He traveled around preaching about God and telling people to turn away from their sins. People started talking about Jesus and the things he was teaching. They were interested in what Jesus had to say. Large crowds followed Jesus around and listened to him teach. One day, Jesus was walking along the Sea of Galilee. He saw two brothers, Simon, who was called Peter, and Andrew. Peter and Andrew were fishermen. Jesus called out to them, "Follow me, and I will teach you to fish for people." Right away, Peter and Andrew dropped their nets and followed Jesus. Later, he saw two more brothers. Their names were James and John. They were in a boat, fixing nets with their father, Zebedee. Jesus called out to them, and right away they got up, left their father and the boat, and followed Jesus. Jesus went on and saw a man named Matthew, who was also called Levi. Matthew was sitting at the tax office. Matthew was a tax collector. Many people didn't like tax collectors because tax collectors were unfair. Jesus called out to him, "Follow me." So Matthew got up, left everything behind, and followed Jesus. Matthew had a big feast for Jesus at his house. Many tax collectors and sinners came to eat with Jesus and his disciples. The religious leaders saw this, and they didn't think Jesus should be friends with people who did wrong things. They complained to the disciples, "Why does your teacher eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners?" Jesus heard the religious leaders and said, "People who are healthy don't need a doctor, but people who are sick do. I did not come to invite good people. I came to invite sinners to turn back to God." Later, Jesus gathered his followers together and chose 12 of them to be his disciples. Jesus' apostles would work closely with Jesus and would go out to tell others about him. These are the men Jesus chose: Simon, who was called Peter, Simon's brother Andrew, James and John, who were called the sons of thunder, Philip and Bartholomew, Matthew and Thomas, James and the son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot. Jesus came to earth to show what God is like and to save people from their sins. This is great news. Jesus told his disciples to tell others about him, and we are Jesus' disciples when we trust in him. Everyone in the world needs to hear the good news about Jesus.
All right, so don't worry, we're not going to quiz you on all of those names, but isn't it awesome to kind of hear a few of the stories about how Jesus chose the disciples? Now, it's a little bit different than our friend at the beginning in our game, because really it wasn't Jesus going around kind of having an American Idol or The Voice or a competition where we put two things in front. He was looking directly at their hearts and knowing what was going on behind the scenes. He wanted to bring them in and understand them in a bigger way. He knew who he needed, but they still made a choice. They still chose to follow him. We see this over and over again where they dropped what they were doing. They closed what they were doing. They even reacted in a positive way where they brought all their friends together. I also want to challenge you that sometimes us as churchgoers, we might fall a little bit more into what they call the religious leaders, where we want our family, we want our group to be with us. We love being with us. I know that many of you are missing your church friends. Many of you are missing your school friends especially, but maybe even just your neighbors or even family. Many of you are missing them, and you're missing, and really frankly, many of us just want to go get a hug or just spend time together again. That's exactly what God has made us for. He's made us for, the bigger word is community, but he's made us to be together. God was creating a community, but our community always needs to be open. It needs to be open to fulfill God's mission. God's mission is to tell everyone about Jesus, because you see, God looks past what we see on the outside and he looks deep into it. To help illustrate this, I actually have another game, but it's more of an illustration. So let's play this game together. All right, so in this game, it's a little different. We're going to zoom in on a picture really, really tight, and then we're going to slowly come out of it. and I want you to try as fast as possible, start guessing what it is. And once you kind of feel like you have it really down, stick with it. Don't go anywhere, and I want to see how many you can get right. There's a few rounds to it. I want to see if you can just keep going and keep going to figure out which ones are which. Are you ready to play? All right, let's get started. All right, so this game, like I said, is all about zooming in. So we're gonna start off with an easy one and work our way up. Are you ready? All right, ready, set, go. All right, ooh, all right. What is that? Is it? Oh, ooh, oh, okay, huh. Oh, all right, I think I know what it is. Yep. Did you get it? Did you get it? Pepperoni pizza, did you get it? All right, so this next one, many of you played it downstairs in Journey Kids, or maybe just at home. Maybe you're a champion of this. You know, we'll see what you got. All right. So ready, set, go. Okay. Oh, all right. Ooh, that's quite colorful. Okay. All right. Cool. Oh, yep. All right. Definitely see it now. All right. Did you get it? Did you see it? Did you see that, yep, it Connect 4. Did you get it? How many of you have played that downstairs and won? How many of you played me and won? You know, every once in a while, you know, we dust it off and, you know, the Connect 4 champion comes out of me a little bit. All right. So next one up's a little more difficult, but I'm sure everybody's done it. I'm sure absolutely every single person watching this right now has done this. So let's hop right into it, all right? So let's watch it. Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. Oh, all right, okay. All right, well, that's pretty cool. Yeah. All right, did you get it? Flowing bubbles, right? Flowing bubbles. How many of you have done that recently? How many of you, actually the other day we had some come drifting over our fence from another yard. It was the best because that means I didn't have to blow them, Tabitha didn't have to blow them, but they kind of came, you know, just wafting over and they're huge. So that was a lot of fun. Ethan loved that part of the backyard fun so far. All right, last one. I'm seeing if you can pay attention to this one. This one is pretty difficult. This one is pretty hard, and so I'm looking at my older kids. I'm looking at those quick kids. Let's see how fast you can get it. Let's see how quick you got it. So, all right, but before we get there, hold on. Before we get there, this whole game will be on plus 2 more bonus ones on our YouTube channel today. In fact, it's live right now. So after this, you can go to it right now. Just search for Journey Kids River Region. It should be like right here. Journey Kids River Region, and look it up and see if you can get the other twos. Comment as soon as you can. You can take a picture of it and guess. But whatever it is, keep it honest, obviously. But we want to see if you can get them all. All right. So here's the next one. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. Ooh. All right. Yeah. Whoa. I did not see that one coming. If you don't know, a crane is a bird, all right? A crane is a bird, and origami is that cool art of folding paper. Maybe something for somebody to try. I might even post a one this week for you to try out. You know, see if you can follow the directions and see if we can discover it. But really, I really want you to know, the more we can pay attention to the small details, the bigger things happen. So thank you for playing. Thanks for playing Game Time Part 2. Let's dive back in. All right, I don't know how many of those you got right, but I hope you got a few to understand our point, because I know that game maybe not been successful for you, but it definitely was fun, and it illustrates our point perfectly. Jesus knew who the disciples were. You matter more than just what you do. Who you are is what God has made you to be. He made you for a purpose. He made you for His kingdom, and it's your choice whether or not you're going to follow. These fishermen were not the kings, were not the leaders. They were just simple men. But when Jesus came along, He saw into them something so much more. They stepped up and they followed Jesus. They left what was behind and they went wholeheartedly. That's the reason why we have the church. They're the beginning of the church. They're the beginning of the church that eventually translated the Bible, that sent missionaries around the world for you and for me to know who Jesus is. Jesus didn't speak English when he was here on earth. Jesus didn't talk the way we talk. Jesus didn't even wear what we wear. But yet, because of those men, because of the people he chose and those families as they spread, Jesus' name is known worldwide. How crazy is that? From a bunch of guys that society never would have said would lead the world, let alone change the world forever 2,000 years ago. Jesus sees the same thing in you. Something awesome. Something big. You will discover that God has created you for something big. I cannot wait for those moments to happen. But something really integral needs to happen in order for all of those things together, and it's trust. In fact, my friend Brian, Pastor Brian as we call him, has a great question that might help you along your way. So let's check that out.
Hey there, I'm Pastor Brian, and it's time for Questions from Kids. Anna Lee from Clinton, Mississippi asks,
how do we know if we are going to like God's plan?
all right, Anna, you might not like my answer because my answer might not be what you would expect. You are probably sitting there thinking, all right, Pastor Brian's gonna give us this great explanation about how we're always gonna like God's plan and it'll be really warm and fuzzy. Well, that's not the answer I can give. The answer I need to give is we don't know if we're always gonna like God's plan because God's plan sometimes includes for us to go through suffering and hard things. We know this is true because think about God's plan for Jesus, his own son. God's plan for Jesus was that Jesus would suffer and die for the sins of the world. And so if God would have his own son go through that plan of difficulty and hardship, why do we think God would spare us from hard things? We're not promised that. And so while there are some times where God's plan for us is very pleasant, and we, appreciate that, there are times that God's plan for us includes difficult things, and we're just not gonna like it. But here's the key. It's not about what we like, it's about what we trust, and it's about who we trust. You see, whatever God's plan is for us, we need to learn to trust that God is at work no matter what for his glory and our good. That God will be glorified through anything, and that we can find that it is for our good as well, even if we don't see it on this earth. Now, one day in heaven, I believe we're gonna look back and God will show us why we went through what we went through, and we're gonna say, oh, now it makes sense. But that may not happen on earth. And so the key for us, again, is not necessarily to want to like God's plan, but to want to trust his plan no matter what. That's what faith is all about. So I've got a question back for you. Is it easy or hard for you to trust God's plan for you, and why?
Have you ever thought that? Have you ever thought, am I even gonna like God's plan when we get there? In fact, recently I had a fantastic conversation with some of my friends that right before they were getting baptized. And his question was, if I follow God, can I still fulfill my dream? His dream is to be a pilot. If I follow God, can I still do what I wanna do? And the answer to that is yes and no. God has created you and created desires for you. But those desires need to align with his plan. We need to change the desires that don't match up, and we need to go after the desires that perfectly match up. I don't know what God has in store for him, but I do know amazing Christians that happen to be pilots. I also know amazing Christians that happen to be soccer players, or happen to be teachers, people that work at gas stations, people that serve food, people that own businesses, people that drive trucks. All across our nation, there are people that are fulfilling what God has for them. But more importantly, they're doing what God wants. They're putting God's purposes and God's plan first. They're trusting in God's plan first. That's our job. That's the big integral part of following is trust, knowing God's plan, especially in this time. In this time right now, there's a lot of things going on that we may not fully understand. But we know and we can trust that God is in charge, and God knows. God knows what's going on. I cannot wait to see many of you soon. I cannot wait to join back together. But until then, I hope and I pray that you continue to trust in God's plan and continue to trust that our timing is perfect. Until then, have a great day.